While I'm definitely attached to Koqui, I'm more attached to the idea of providing a service that people actually want and need. Like if I'm not bringing value to you, then I don't really necessarily think that I'm doing you any good or the business really isn't going to be sustainable.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, disruptors, and creators who are making things happen. My name is Michael T. Johnson, and I am here with my co-host, Tyler Kelly. Today, we're at Venture Cafe Miami, Venture Cafe being the largest gathering of entrepreneurs anywhere in the world. So on a Thursday evening, if you're near Venture Cafe, I suggest you check it out. I'm also very excited because tonight we have Tiara Miles with us. Tiara, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So Tiara is the founder and CEO of Koki.
Yes.
Born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, fellow Midwesterner.
Yeah.
Attended Columbia University, majored in women's studies and human rights.
Yeah.
Did you graduate in 2011?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
And since then, you've been a part of a commercial leadership program based out of Louisville, moved to Miami in 2013.
Yes.
And you launched Koki just recently, February 2018.
Yes.
So a little over a year, in the making.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about that, talk about you, talk about your journey as an entrepreneur, and we're happy to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So, Koki, I read the background. You are a vegan or just a vegetarian?
I'm kind of in between. I have
Okay.
anywhere between a vegan diet to vegetarian. Sometimes I'll eat fish if I want some more protein.
Okay.
So I try to stay away from labels because people with food get a bit touchy with
This is true.
wanting to put me in a category.
That's
and so
true.
I say I'm a flexitarian.
Your partner is a meat eater.
Yes.
There's
Loves
no
meat.
getting around that, right?
Right.
And
Even fish is not considered
It's
a
not
meal.
enough.
It's like a snack.
For meat eaters, yeah, it's not
Right.
enough. But because of that, making dinners at home was difficult, and that's where you had the spark,
Yes. Koki.
Koki.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Okay, so we basically were just kind of at a crossroads. I felt like my life was just getting busier every day, and I was struggling to find time to go to the grocery store and cook food for us because we really couldn't share anything, and it was two completely separate meals. So between grocery shopping and cooking, it could be anywhere between 4 to 5 hours of a day if I was trying to maybe cook for several meals. And then we would also try takeout, and then that's always a hit or miss, these days. And so I just was thinking there has to be a better option out there for people that, don't want takeout, but also don't want to cook. And so that's kind of where, I started thinking about it for a few days, and it just popped in my head. And so then I just started going from there.
Wow.
So take us through that process to what it actually turned into.
Happened?
Yeah.
Okay. So then I thought, oh my God, why couldn't I just book a chef? And so then, of course, you get on the computer and you look I could book a chef, right? There are companies that exist today where you can, book a chef, but it wasn't necessarily as kind of cut and dry is ordering my groceries on Instacart or something like that. And I was looking for a solution like that, and that's what I couldn't find. And so just kind of after research, seeing what the market offered, I then thought what would it take for me to kind of create this on my own? I think I was already in the space of wanting to create something already. And so it kind of was just a natural kind of journey that I went on, and okay, let's test this out. Let me pitch the idea to friends and family and see what they think. Here's some of those tough questions, and then try to figure out how do you even do the first step? What does it even take? And so from there, I thought, well, let me try to book a chef. And so I went through the journey of booking several chefs here in Miami just to see that process and what they charge and how it all worked. And I kind of learned a lot about the kind of industry and kind of the initial kind of maybe foundation of what the business needs to look like. And then kind of from there, it was kind of one thing after another, okay, now that I figured out how it works, how would I improve this process, right? So, okay, I need a website, and, how do I go about finding a developer need a menu? How do I work with the chef to build out that menu? And so it was kind of a lot of those, kind of next things you kind of thought as you kind of went along.
So what was your entrepreneurial journey prior to this? Is this your first thing?
Yes.
Okay.
So first thing, it's funny because I never saw myself as an entrepreneur, mainly because, I kind of took a more traditional route of, college, thought I was going to law school, then realized I didn't want to be a lawyer. It kind of looked like it sucked. And then I decided to go into corporate America. And I did enjoy working and learning a lot from, that type of structure. I worked with a legacy company, so you learned a lot. But then, a few years ago, I kind of felt stagnant and that there wasn't really options for, me to move up within the company. And so I thought, well, maybe next step's business school. And the more I kind of just went through this exploratory journey of, what's next for me and kind of where I see myself going and just reading books, autobiographies and different startup books, I found myself naturally thinking of improving processes all around me, right? So I would go to restaurants and think, if they just reupholstered their chairs, it'll have such a nicer vibe, and as I went through all of these different things, I found myself wanting to improve businesses. And then that kind of led me to my own journey of maybe I want to start something that I love and care about, right? I want to solve a problem that actually matters to me rather than solving a problem that matters to someone else, right? And so then I bought what I call my book of ideas, literally bought a notebook, and I would just have ideas and I would write them down and then pitch to different people and get their feedback. And then kind of when Coqui happened, it wasn't so much as oh, this is a great idea. It was it finally hit me that, I had a need and maybe there's a business that can come out of this need. And so that's kind of how the spark kind of, was lit inside of me. And then I decided, let me just jump into this and see how things go.
It's interesting. It's interesting that you say that because a lot of the guests that we have on say in entrepreneurs, a lot of failing businesses are that cool idea that doesn't really have a place, but it sounds like you came across a need rather than just a cool idea.
Right. And that's what I wanted because I thought, there are so many cool things or just something that already exists and then someone kind of just a deviation of that same idea, right? And that's similar to what I tell people with Coqui, right? I love the business, I live and breathe it every single day. But it's not the most original idea, right? In the sense that you can book a chef. There are other companies that have tried it. Some haven't succeeded. Some are very local, right? But I think that there's something here on how do we improve the process and accessibility so that it's a seamless process for people. And rather it being seen as a luxury or something you do every once in a while, it becomes a necessity and resource for people that they use weekly, right? And so that's where I think our opportunity is and why I decided to kind of, put, I guess, my, pitchfork in the sand and say, this is what I'm going to try to do.
Well, Miami's an interesting market for food.
Yes.
Right? And for chefs.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of food opportunities for chefs in Miami.
Right.
Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So because we've actually booked chefs, right, across the, when you go to a city, book a chef or whatever. And other cities aren't as expensive as Miami. Let's just put it that way. So but what I'm getting at is you've been able to launch and have get traction
yes.
in a city where food is probably a little bit higher than in most cities. So tell me about that challenge and
you're right. And so I think, being down in Miami for so long, I kind of forget that I'm in this bubble. And then I go to say Georgia and I get an amazing meal for $12. And I'm wait, in Miami, that's $25, And so I think for me at least, right, my background is not in culinary. But I became a huge foodie when I lived in Louisville, Kentucky. And then when I moved to Miami, it just further kind of grew. And I found myself studying restaurant menus, for fun. I would just look at the menu oh, this sounds good. Let me add this restaurant to my list, right? And so I had a list of 30 restaurants that I wanted to eat at and just kind of my overall love for food and just kind of understanding how people kind of received and what they looked for food, I think made it easier for me as I kind of transitioned that kind of information and just my overall experiences into the business. And so what we've seen is that there's a huge trend of people who, they're more conscious of what they're eating, right? So people are willing to pay a premium for it to be maybe organic, cooked, in a very clean space where you kind of know what's inside. People are looking at ingredients. More people kind of want to enjoy food at home. And so how do you have, a service that kind of supports that? And so we've seen that our, main demographic of customers, takeout is an option, but for families, for instance, it becomes really expensive. And when you have small children, you're very mindful of what they eat, and then just kind of with the certain kind of demographic of household income, our customers are willing to spend a bit more, for fresh, healthy meals that are cooked just for them. Because maybe they have a special diet, maybe they're vegan or gluten-free. And so we're able to accommodate for those type of diets.
Tell us about that process of kind of iteration. How did you test what you started with and what did that process look like?
Okay, so that was a very long process. So when I first thought of Koki, like I was telling you, it was a need that I had, just kind of my day-to-day. But when I went to launch the business, I actually focused more on in-home dining experiences. So like brunch, dinner, light bites for an appetizer, because I thought this is what people are willing to pay for. And I was pretty like anti like a meal prep company. I was like, I would never be a meal prep company, right? But then once I launched, people weren't booking, right? And so I had to go through this whole journey of like, well, why aren't they booking? Like, what's going on? And now when I reflect back, I think a lot of it was just like overall awareness, right? Like people need to know you're around to actually book you. A stranger's going into people's homes. So how do you address that concern? Like what information is like available on your website so people kind of see all of the kind of warm and fuzzy they need to see? And so then, as I kind of learned some of those different things, talking to my immediate kind of friend group and then other people, everyone said, well, I do like to host, but I maybe only do that once a year, if that. But I do have a weekly need for food. So then what did I do? I launched like a meal prep option, right? And so it was The Chef Was Coming, and I mainly focused on kind of like, I thought my demographic were millennials who were kind of on the go, super health conscious, cared about what they were eating, and, had the disposable income to book a chef. And so I focused on like one person households or like two people in a household. And it worked, but I think there was still a disconnect. So I had people that would say, oh, you're too expensive. And at that point, we were charging like $15 per meal, right? And so for me, I'm like, expensive? Like you're getting like organic groceries from Whole Foods, a chef is actually cooking it. And we recruit these chefs from like the best restaurants in Miami. So you're really getting a great deal. But I realized, as we were struggling to kind of really get traction and understand who are our early adapters, I kind of paused and I said, who's naturally coming to me without me having to like market to them? And I realized we were getting messages and kind of DMs from women who were saying, hey, I have a family, 3 kids, and we would love for a chef to kind of come and cook several meals to help me through the week. And then my most loyal customer was a mom with one daughter who was using us to kind of supplement her week, and she was just booking the 2-person option. And so once we kind of started digging into that, doing some surveys, testing some different things on social media marketing, we realized that really our early adapters were families rather than kind of the young millennials on the go. And so we then kind of pivoted the business to focus on that need, because it's more of like a weekly consistent need rather than like, oh, I'm entertaining a few friends, this Friday night.
So let's talk about pivoting and making the decision to pivot, because I know as a founder, a lot of times founders that don't pivot, they don't pivot because they're just attached to that original idea. So tell me about that process and how you made that decision.
It actually started, so I completed an accelerator and with WinLab, Babson University sponsors the program. And my very first meeting with my coach, I was explaining kind of the meal prep service, and I was like, oh, it's a loss leader. I'm using this to get people in the door, and then they're going to book our other services. And she said, well, are they booking them? And I was like, no. And she's like, well, it's not a loss leader. She's like, the idea is that they should then, want these other services. And when she did that, I was like, I'm like, okay, let me go back to the drawing board. And while I'm definitely attached to Coqui, I'm more attached to the idea of providing a service that people actually want and need. Like if I'm not bringing value to you, then I don't, then I don't really necessarily think that I'm doing you any good, or the business really isn't going to be sustainable, right? And so kind of as we went through that process of, figuring out, okay, do I need to pivot? At the end of the day, like I wanted customers, right? And I need to figure out who was that customer, because I also think as you scale and the business kind of takes different turns and we offer different services, our demographic is definitely going to open up naturally. And so for me, it wasn't as painful, I think, as maybe it is for other people to do the pivot. I still see it as a win.
What was your experience like with WinLab, and what's it like to work with an accelerator?
Oh, it was awesome. I think it was the best decision I made for the business. So I wasn't really connected with the entrepreneurial scene here in Miami, and I think part of it was just existing in corporate America. There's oftentimes detachment and you don't really interact. And so I knew I needed a support system or just people I could talk to about ideas and push me and have mentors. And so I I actually was nominated for the program. And then once I kind of did some research and spent some time, learning about the program, I thought this sounds like a great fit for me. And going through the program, it was definitely rigorous. There was a lot of great information. I felt very exposed to the entrepreneur scene here. And so I think there was just tons of value. People asked me very tough questions. I had to practice my pitch, everything from my deck. I think things that I would have stumbled across eventually, but it just sped up the process significantly, right? Which is the point of an accelerator. So it just definitely accelerated the business. And as soon as I left the program, I saw 400%, revenue growth, right? Just because they put me in positions where I just had to really figure it out. And then once I did, it was just like, okay, you're headed in the right direction.
So now you're through the accelerator.
Yes.
And you're building a business. Businesses run on revenue. So what is your greatest challenge, like going into that next evolutionary phase of your business?
I definitely think that it is, filling in the holes, right? So a friend just said, well, the fact that there are holes means you're growing. And I think that, it's everything from our business, operations is a big piece of that. Do we have the right people that are helping us on our branding and marketing side? Everything from finding our chefs and having the right talent. And so we have all these different pieces that I think make us kind of run day to day. And so my challenge is, sometimes looking at how much time I have in a day and where do I need to put that time, but then also who can I, recruit to be a part of the team to help kind of fill in those other areas that still need support, because I can't, do it all, of course.
So your biggest challenge is always your greatest opportunity as well.
Right.
And it's nice to know that you already know so early on that you can't do it all yourself. That's as an entrepreneur, that's a big thing, right? Because at least for me, I was like, I can do it all myself. Like that's just that default. But then eventually you learn the hard way. No, you can't. You need people to surround you. So Coqui in 5 years, like what's the vision?
Whew. I think in 5 years, we would love to be in at least 3 separate markets, right? So expanding to, we think the next great market for us would be like Atlanta, and then heading up to like the DMV area, and then maybe making our way up to like the tri-state, area. And so really it's just expansion, right? We want awareness. We want to have a brand that really resonates with people, has good integrity. And so kind of just what all those foundational kind of roots we need to lay now that helps us kind of reach those goals. But really we're just thinking, how can we tackle the U.S. as quickly as possible? Mm-hmm. But, be able to sustain that, that growth.
So I'm at home. I don't have anything to eat. I can't just like get a chef tonight. I need to plan a little bit in advance, right?
Yes. So we come as early as next day.
Okay.
So, of course, the goal of right now, we're hoping that within the next year we can do same day. And some of those pieces are operational, like logistics things. But next day we have our cutoff around 12. Usually we'll, extend that for some of our kind of regular customers, but we have that cutoff and the chef is there next day with groceries, any special equipment that's needed, ready to cook your meals for you.
So what do I need to do? Just download the app?
We don't currently have an app.
Okay.
We have a website. You go and we actually have a menu that we rotate every 2 weeks. Okay. And so you select 4 meals that you would like from there, and the chef makes enough servings for your family of those 4 meals. And then they pack them away in containers and put it in the refrigerator. So you can enjoy one that same day, which a lot of our customers do. The other ones kind of just pack it away and put it in the fridge.
That sounds awesome. So last question that's completely unrelated. Yeah. So being someone who's a foodie, you love food. If I was coming to Miami and I could only eat at like 3 places in Miami.
Ooh.
What would someone have to experience here?
Okay. I would definitely say I'm obsessed with Thai food. And so I kind of go all over the city because I have different spots for different dishes. But I would definitely say Lung Ya Thai, which I'm probably butchering their name, over on Calle Ocho, Little Havana. And I would say also Bombay, if you love Indian food, it's in Coconut Grove, Bombay Darbar. And let's see, the last one, where else is a regular? I'm blanking. Where else would be a favorite? Maybe let's go with Komodo in Brickell. I'm a huge fan.
Those are 3 restaurants I've never been to. So,
Really?
yeah,
Never
that's
been to those.
amazing. I can't wait to try those
Okay,
out.
so I'm definitely going to give you a list.
So how can people get in touch with you, with Coqui?
Yeah, okay. So you can follow us. We're on all platforms at CoquiExperience.com. That's Koki, the word experience. And, we look forward to connecting with people. Please follow us, send us emails, ask questions. We'd love to connect.
Tiara, thank you for being on the show. This has been amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. For more episodes, visit innovationcity.co and be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. If you're in Miami, visit us at Venture Cafe on Thursday nights. You can find details at venturecafemiami.org and connect with us on social at We Are Slam and Venture Cafe MIA.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life.